All right, welcome everyone. And in today's video, we're going to go over how to install a Shocktech lower tube kit, and that's going to be in the standard 9/16 and the PHAT Rat. The only difference being is the 9/16 requires a few more tools and the PHAT Rat a few less tools. Everything else should be the same. So let's start off with what are the tools you're going to need for the most part. Well, you're going to need a 5/32 Allen key and an 1/8 inch Allen key, a flat small bladed screwdriver. We have a tip here and we'll explain that. A valve installation tool, which is for the 9/16, and then it's just recommended to have a high quality set of Allen keys available. Additionally, the two lubes that Shocktech recommends is either slick oleum, which you can get at multiple locations, or Dow 33 Light. Either one will work fine when a lubrication or a grease is required. So with that, let's start with initially assembling the parts prior to putting them in the body. So I'm going to put a couple things off to the side, and let's start with the PHAT Hammer. So with the PHAT Hammer, you're going to have three components that you get from Shocktech. They are not assembled generally. You're going to have a little set screw, and I'm going to zoom in here. You're going to have a little set screw right here. You're going to have the PHAT Hammer itself, and you're going to either have the cone lug, which we have here, or a rounded lug, whichever one you've ordered. Okay, so we're going to grab our tools. We're going to grab our screwdriver, I think this nice little screwdriver bit makes it easier to install, and if you don't have a hex driver, just grab your 1/8 inch hex key. First thing we're going to do is we're going to install the nylon set screw, and I find it's easy that this little flat bladed screwdriver bit, I find it's easier just to kind of snaps in there, and you're going to install it in the bottom here. It's best to turn it counterclockwise until you feel kind of the threads grab, and then you should be able to screw it until you can't screw it in anymore. You're done with that bit. Get your small bladed screwdriver, and you're going to screw this down while looking through this hole, and you want that plastic piece just to go to the outside of the inner threads here. There's some inner threads, so you just want it to start to protrude. Okay, doesn't need to go really far in there, just a little bit. I'm going to screw this down. It should screw in easy, shouldn't feel cross-threaded. I'm going to get it just where I'm looking through the hole right now with the white background, and I'm going to see that just get in there. You can kind of see it in there. See if I can get it to focus. See, just barely past the threads, and that's where you want to be on that. So then you put your screwdrivers aside. You can get your lug, either the rounded or the coned, and your 1/8 inch driver, and you want to make sure that this is oriented correct in the PHAT Hammer, and that is the engaging part of the sear is on the side of where this notch is, and this notch is to make sure the hammer does not grab your rear frame screw. So you have a frame screw that's a little tall, then it's this is the little recess to make sure that your hammer doesn't grab, because the PHAT Hammer is a tad bit longer in the back, and that just is a little extra help, and that's why that recess is here. The recess essentially goes towards the bottom of the gun, and the lug's out there. So what you do is you want to back the lug through, and the reason you want to do this is you want to be able to get that piece of nylon. You want to cut it with this kind of the sharper end, the back side. It will cut through it and not mash it over. It makes it easier to adjust and provides just the exact tension. So you're going to start it in by hand. You always want to start these in by hand. Make sure they're threaded nice. Run your Allen key on the opposite side, and then you're just going to back this through, and you'll feel it cutting through that material. when you get almost to the top, a lot of times you'll see, this one it didn't do it, sometimes you see a little piece of plastic that actually cut through. On this one you don't see it, which is okay. But you know that it's fine. I like to bring it out a little bit, make sure that little plastic, if it's there, it falls off. Then bring it back to where it's flush. That's how you set up the PHAT hammer. And you shouldn't have any other need to do anything else to this. The nylon set screw provides two purposes. One is to provide tension on the lug so it doesn't back out while you're using the marker. And the second is to lock your caulking rod in. So what happens is your caulking rod will go down, it will hit the screwdriver part of that plastic lug, which is soft, and it allows you to kind of mash this into that, and it locks this in so this doesn't vibrate loose. Very important. One of the reasons why they did it. It's a very simple design. So we can just set this off to the side. All right, now in the process of installing the lower tube, we have the hammer assembled. Now we're going to install the rat valve, and we're going to demonstrate the 9/16, the traditional rat valve installation. And I have an older aftershock body here to demonstrate on, which will be perfect for this. And I picked up, this is just a red anodized rat valve. It allows you to see it a little bit better. And we're going to explain that. But the tools you need in installing this are you're going to need a installation autococker valve installation tool, which is something like this. You're going to need a 5/32 Allen. That's for your jam nut. And then you're obviously going to need your front valve spring. Okay, and then that's not a tool, but you'll need that too. And then for your valve, and let's set the body off to the side here. Oh, and let's get all the parts you're going to need for your valve. Let's bring all these parts out here. You'll need the jam nut, and this is a stainless steel version. The black metal ones work just fine. This is just a stainless steel version. You're going to need the set screw, and it's the one that came with your marker is the original one. If you're replacing it like with a War Games one, will work perfectly fine. The rat valve does not come with one, but you will need that. And obviously we have your spring here. And then your rat valve. And your rat valve will come with the nylon seals. I have one I'll show you here in a second. Will come with essentially those parts. You have your valve stem, your valve body, this is your valve stem seal, and this is your retaining locking. These two parts are exactly the same. And so I'm going to show in a little diagram here, I'm going to bring up on the screen, how you are to install these little nylon pieces. But the front nylon piece, there'll be a taper on the nylon. When it's punched out, it's tapered on the edge, and the fat in the taper will go in first. And look at the diagram there, kind of show what it is. So I'm going to look at this. You're going to put it on edge, and you'll see the taper. You're going to push that in, so the fat end taper goes in first. On the back one, the narrow taper goes in first. Okay, and then here you're going to take a little bit of slick oleum. Open up my. I like using a little Q-tip. Don't need much. We're going to take the O-ring that's on the stem and just put, this is a lot, don't need that much. Just put a little bit of lube on that and then slide that in. And whatever lube you have on your fingers, you can just wipe it around the number 12 70 durometer O-ring. And this is ready to be installed. So with that, we're going to grab our installation tool here, and we're going to put on the jam nut on the installation tool. See the little nylons there? We'll put that on there. And in a lot of cases, the spring will snap on. Let's see if I can get a spring to snap on. Here's one right here. It will snap on like that. And this spring is just a little loose, but that's okay. If it doesn't snap on, you can just drop your spring down in your body. Make sure your spring goes in first. And let's talk a little bit about how the back washer works. And here's one that's used. If I can get this in the focus, and you kind of see it's kind of molded out. What happens is, as this jam nut squishes down, it smashes this and seals this in, and it squishes out into the jam nut a little bit, which locks the jam nut. Now, Shocktech does not Loctite their jam nuts in. You can use a little bit of blue Loctite, and here's the Vivatite 122 blue. This is oil resistant. I think it's the 542 in the Loctite brand. That's the Vivatite brand. You can use some of that. It's not required because how this little nylon washer does two things. A, it locks this jam nut in, and B, it seals it. So what you're going to do is make sure your spring's in there, and you're going to drop this in, and you just start screwing it down while looking through the hole. You want to line up the hole. There'll be a hole on one side, and then there'll be a pad on the other side. Sometimes you get to get your little tool down in there, and you'll see. Get it in there in the light. It's kind of hard to see. And you just want to get it where you can see the pad. You're not really tightening down on that. Grab your screw, and you're going to drop your screw down. And so I'm spinning it here. I'm just dropping it down to where I feel it just touch on the valve. And I'm going to screw in a little bit, and I'm going to take this out, and I want to make sure I'm not twisting that valve. I want to make sure that everything is nice and flat in there. Now it looks nice and square. It looks nice and square. I'm going to continue this down. I'm going to snug it down just a little bit. And then I'm going to screw this in, put a little force on it. I want to mash that nylon. I want to have that, make sure that that does not come loose. Should be nice and tight. You can pull your autococker installation tool out. Take this screw out. And you should be able to see that the valve is not turned in there, and it's nice and flat. You can add a little bit of Loctite, blue Loctite, to this if you want to screw this in. In this case, we will on this one. And just a little dab. This just holds the screw in place, keeps it from vibrating out. Wipe off any excess. And that is how you install the 9/16 valve in a 9/16 lower tube autococker body. Alright, now we're going to install the 11/16 PHAT Rat and in a body. And the tools you're going to need for that is you're going to need an Allen key, which is your 5/32 for your jam nut, and maybe a piece of macroline or wooden dowel. You can use your, if you have the kit, you can use your hammer and your lug to help push the valve into place. We'll help with that. And you'll need some slick oiling, some valve lube, and make sure everything's nice and lubed to go in there to slide everything in. Now, with 11/16 valves, an important note here is that an 11/16 valve is held in with a jam screw, and these come with a specific jam screw. They've been tested in multiple bodies to make sure the jam screw is the right height, all the way from Merlin, aka Merlin bodies, to inception bodies, resurrection bodies. And this is a specific jam screw. It's got to be used with this. It helps align the valve perfectly in the chamber so the output port of the valve is aligned with the transfer hole in the body. Okay. Additionally, the PHAT Rats come with number 15 70 durometer sealing O-rings on it. Depending on your situation and your lower tube, some lower tubes, the inside diameters larger than some. For instance, the Numec autococker bodies, the lower tube is 0.70, which is the largest that we've seen. And then Resurrections are a little bit smaller diameter than that, but not much. So you may have to change your O-rings out. These number 1570s may not work. And the reason being is if you tighten this set screw, or the alignment screw we want to call it, if you tighten it too tight, it will push the valve off center. And doing so, you'll get a leak in there. You'll think you'll sit there and replace these seals every time, and that's not the case. So the options are, what we found is like on a resurrection body, generally a 90 durometer number 15 will work better in a resurrection body. We'll get the seal. In a Numec body, we found that a 2 millimeter, a metric 2 millimeter thick O-ring by a 14 millimeter inside diameter O-ring, so it's the 2x14s, will work in a 70 durometer, work well in those bodies and seal it fine. And then it really depends on your body. So I recommend that you, first off, is you take the O-rings off, you run the valve, make sure it slides all the way down and back. There aren't any burrs catching anything. And then you want it to be tight. So you're going to have to use a decent amount of lubricant. And I'm going to put slick oleum on it. Put this on my Q-tip. And I'm going to run in these threads in here. I'm going to run a little bit in these threads because I want to be able to make sure that everything's lubed up. I don't want to cut the O-ring on anything. If your body was machined after the fact to be 11/16, you want to make sure there aren't any burrs or any sharp edges through all these holes here. As you slide it in, you could clip the O-ring and that could cause a leak. So it's one of the reasons why Shocktech doesn't necessarily do 11/16 valve bodies, because the 9/16 is just as reliable, we found. So, but we do offer this for people that want to do that. But anyway, let's get this prepped. We have two number 15s that will work fine on this body. We put a little bit of lube on the O-ring back behind here. The seat is installed exactly the same as the 9/16s, but you only have one. So the fat end of the taper on this nylon washer goes in first. We can put the spring on, kind of snaps on the front there. And then we want to get some lubricant here. And I'm really going to lather this thing up. I want a lot on this. So it's going to get a little messy. And this valve has two sides. Obviously the output hole, and then the set screw alignment hole. And this has the same taper as this set screw. That's why it's important to use the factory one. So you want to make sure that the hole is down. We're going to start wiggling this in. It may get kind of tough, but you want to have plenty of lube. Then you can get your hammer back in here, and you can just slowly push it in. When you get to these little shelves in here, just kind of make sure the O-ring doesn't get clipped, and then you should be good. And if you go too far, you can get your Allen key and just kind of pull it back into place, and the valve should be in. The last thing we have to do is wipe off any oil. We recommend some blue Loctite. You can use Vibatite 122, will work fine. And we put a dab of this. Don't need much, just a little bit on there. And the goal is we want to go down, hit it, turn it, back it off, and just go down lightly with the fingers till it stops. Because when you go down initially, it's going to line that valve, that cone on this set screw, and the cone, the receiving cone on the valve body will align the valve body to the transfer holes right. And then you back it out, and then you go down. You go down to where it just stops and a tad bit more, because you don't want to push extra pressure on that valve, taking it out of a line in the bore and potentially creating a leak. Always go in, make sure your valve functions right. And that's installing the PHAT Rat, or the 11/16 valve, in an 11/16 ready body. All right, so now we've now installed both valves, the 9/16 and 11/16 valve and bodies. The final thing in the kit is to install the hammer and the spring and the IVG. So we'll get all our parts out here. I like screwing the hammer on to the cocking rod just loosely, and you're going to put it in, make sure that it slides in and spins around freely. There's no binding anywhere, it's not catching on anything. You're going to line up the lug, and this one has the cone lug. We'll be getting a gunfighter frame. And so you drop your 1/8 inch Allen key down, and you will screw this lug down. And in a Shocktech with a gunfighter, we're going to have a gunfighter on this. This lug will go all the way down till it's flush with the bottom of the body. So I can take my Allen key, it's not flush, and back it out a little bit. It's still kind of grabbing, just a smidge more, a little bit more, and it seems to be fine there. Take out your cocking rod. And so with a cone lug on a gunfighter frame, a gunfighter 1.5 frame, the cone lug will be flush with the bottom of the body. Okay, do not change that. That is a required height. You can't go any lower. You can't back it down anymore to get a different trigger feel. So if you're using a rounded lug and a slider frame, then you're going to need to adjust that in your timing mechanism and follow the other guides on that. Other guides that are out there for adjusting that. We're going to drop our spring in. Oh, before we do that, we'd like to drop, this is LA Co. Precision Spout Oiler. This is part number 79704. This is just a really light lubricant. And all we're going to do, you don't need much, a drop. You really don't need even that. This is a brass hammer, and it will lubricate itself. Do not put grease on these hammers. Do not put excessive amount of oil on these hammers. You will slow the speed of the hammer down, which could affect the performance of the marker. With the oil that's on your fingers, just take the spring and just put a little oil on it. Just a little. This will just kind of keep it from corroding. And then likewise with the IVG, a little bit of oil on that friction O-ring here. And then we're going to get our 3/16 Allen key, and we're going to pre-tension this. So we're going to bring this down. We're going to bring the IVG to flush, which is right about there, and just happens to be in line with that. We're going to go 1 revolution, 2 revolution, and that is Shocktech factory setting. And with that, you've now installed your lower tube kit, and you continue with your build.